Welcome, comrades. I am Jason Unruh, the Maoist Rebel, political commentator, and Third Worldist communist, saying to all oppressed peoples that without education, there can be no revolution. I give you Bobby Seale, the founder and original chairman of the original Black Panther Party.
I got to explain to you also your soul, your needs, your political desires and needs, because that is Huey's soul. When we first organized the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, he would say, Bobby, he says, we're going to draw up a basic platform, just basic, that black people can read. He says, we don't want to go real elaborate with all these essays and dissertations and all this stuff, because the brother going to look at that and he can say, man, I ain't got time for that. I got to go see what I can do for myself. He said, just a basic platform that the mothers who struggle hard to raise us, that the fathers who worked hard, that the young brothers in school who come out of school semi-illiterate, you say we want freedom, we want power to determine the destiny of our black community. Full employment for our people. Number 3, we want housing fit, decent housing fit for shelter of human beings. Number 4, we want all black men to be exempt from military service. Number 5, we want decent education for our black people in our community that teaches us the true nature of this decadent racist society, and to teach black people and our young black brothers and sisters their place in the society, because if they don't know their place in society and in the world, they can't relate to anything else. Number 6, we want an end to the robbery by the white racist businessmen of black people and black people in their community. Number 7, we want an immediate end to police brutality and murder of black people. Number 8, we want all black men held in county, state, federal jails and prisons to be released because they have not had a fair trial, because they've been tried by all white juries, and that's just like being tried in Germany being a Jew. Number 8, we want black people, number 9, when brought to trial, to be tried by members of their peers, and a peer being one who comes from the same economic, social, religious, historical, and racial background. If the United States government and the courts and the local courts did this, they would have to choose black people from the black community to sit up on the jury. They'd have to choose some of the mothers who've been working 20 years in Miss Ann's kitchen scrubbing floors like my mother done done. They have to choose some of them hard-working fathers. They have to choose some of those brothers who stand on the block out there wondering where they're going to get a gig. They're going to have to choose these black people. And number 10, he would say, let's just summarize it. We want housing, we want clothing, we want education, we want justice, and we want peace. This is the basic platform. In case you never knew it or not, of all the things that you've heard in the press, of all the derogatory statements that's been made in the press about Brother Huey P. Newton and I, of all these derogatory statements to guide you away from seeing this basic platform that Huey was talking about for his own people. We have to learn to look through the white press. We have to learn to see what's going on. Now, out of this platform, Huey P. Newton realized that it was necessary for us to start working on these points, these 10 points practically. Remember number 7? We want an immediate end to police brutality and murder of black people. This is very, very important. And here, whether you know it or not, is where you start dealing with the black revolution. When Huey says every black man put a shotgun in your home, and once we let the man know, say, look, we armed from block to block, and we're going to patrol you from our windows. And we're not going to have you brutalizing none of our people in the streets. Do you realize what kind of power black people have then? Because you begin to neutralize that police force, because them cops going to start riding shaky and scared. In fact, we're in a position then to demand that they withdraw from our community, because they occupy our community just like a foreign troop occupies territory. Very important to understand. We hate cops beating black people over their heads and murdering them. That's what we hate. If you got enough energy to sit down and hate a white person just because of the color of his skin, you're wasting a lot of energy. You better take that same energy and put it in some motion out there and start dealing with those oppressive conditions, and you're going to find out just what you hate and what you're going to stop. Black people, we are organizing to stop racism. You dig it? When you stop racism, you stop brutality and murder of black people by the racist occupying army in our black community. That's what we're going to stop. What's being done to us? You dig it? Can you dig the white power structure in this racist police force and how they've escalated the situation? That before Watts there was 1,300 cops, now there's 6,000 cops patrolling black people. That in Oakland they had 350 cops just 3.5 years ago. Now they got 1,000 cops patrolling black people. San Francisco's doubled its police force, and every area, major metropolis where black people live all across this country, they've doubled, tripled, and quadrupled their police force, equipped them with tanks, all kinds. We got to stop it, brother. Let's get together and unify.
Bobby Seale was actually the one who wrote the 10-point program. Huey P. Newton may have helped, but we know today that it was really Bobby Seale that actually wrote the 10-point program. By the way, in case you have not, go watch the 3 videos I made confronting the evils of colonialism first. The first one is Anti-Colonialism 2012, the second one is Anti-Colonialism 2020, and the third is Anti-Colonialism in Solidarity. Colonialism is very important for the furthering of imperialism. This video confronts not only colonialism, but fascism as well. I support feminism for Europeans like myself, but it may surprise you to know that feminism is not universal. The claim that patriarchy has dominated the entire planet all the way back to antiquity is a Eurocentric myth that we tell ourselves so we can feel better about ourselves. Feminism has its roots in colonialism.
Today, I want to finally talk about maternal colonialism. The reason why I even started this channel to begin with under an Our Women Fight was to protest and to denounce all of these pro-colonialist feminist theorists and authors that are basically brainwashing our young women into believing that there is nothing of value, nothing of importance in our culture. We are presented our culture as indigenous people, as Nicantlaca people, through the eyes of Europeans. And in my knowledge, in my quest for knowledge, in becoming a member of the Mexica movement, all I knew was Cheri Moraga, Gloria Saldúa, Sandra Cisneros. I just knew the pro-colonialist feminist approach to history. I didn't understand who I was. And so it was a very powerful experience to understand that machismo, because we're raised to think it's a Mexican thing, it's a Mexican Central American thing, right? That it's definitive of our culture and if it's definitive of our men, but it's not. Through the process of learning your history, of decolonizing yourself, you start understanding that our history has been told through the eyes, obviously, of white supremacy, of Eurocentricity. And a lot of our women, a lot of the Chicana, now they're called Latina feminists, self-identified Latina feminists, they took on that perspective and they wrote all these books, speaking as mestizas, speaking as colonized people, and not really asking and not really trying to decolonize themselves, but basically passively accepting that colonized mentality. And so in learning my history, learning my understanding my history and decolonizing, you start to realize that feminism, you have to look at the roots. Let's not try to make it seem that, our ancestors had feminism, because we didn't. Feminism, by its historical creation, from what it really meant, from the very beginning of it, was the white women's approach was their denouncing how appalled they were that they were being treated like Nicantaca women were being treated, like black men were being treated. They were like, wait a second, we're above these people. Why are you treating us like you're inferiors, where you and I, white man, are superior to these races? So what white supremacy did, and what they did on our continent, was the sexist mentality that they had in Europe when they came here, when they invaded us, when white women started coming over and joining the colonialism and all this genocidal machines. They said, wait a second, how are you treating us inferior when actually they're the inferior ones, these primitive, these savages, right? And so the creation of feminism was their reaction to trying to get a piece of that white supremacist pie. And a great caption of this, and I'm going to read for you from this great book that is a very honest telling of what really took place during the suffragist movement, what birthed feminism in the so-called U.S., is this book called White Women's Rights: The Racial Origins of Feminism in the United States by Louise Michelle Newman. This is a great book that tells you candidly what it was like for indigenous women and also other women, that were not white, and how we were viewed. Okay, so feminism is what I've heard this concept before. I don't know exactly where it came from, but this aspect of feminism, what we're talking about, is maternal colonialism. Okay, even though they're talking about the third wave of feminism and all this, feminism was created for white women to get the fruits of white supremacy. They wanted to also be part of the white supremacist world. Even though we try to twist it and shape it and make it reflect who we are, it has no business in our culture, because we as Nicantlaca women, we as indigenous women, we didn't need feminism. Okay, the concept of machismo comes from Europe. The concept of not educating a woman because she's a woman comes from Europe. Okay, let us not forget that our ancestors were the first to have mandatory education for males and females. Okay, we were the first to have mandatory education. In our societies, we had doctors, priestess, poets, writers, merchants, and I will talk more about that in other videos, and I have talked about that for lots of years. But today, I want to talk about maternal colonialism. Let me read you a very, this summary, this paragraph basically summarizes what this book is about, and it's a great interpretation of what took place. And they're talking about social Darwinism, obviously Eurocentricity, another word for white supremacy, and the birth of the suffragist movement, or the white women's movement. The simultaneous development of two ideologies, women's rights and social Darwinism, accompanied and made possible white women's entry into the public sphere at a time when new corporate and monopolistic forms of capitalism were creating vast differences in wealth between an educated white managerial class and an impoverished, often immigrant and non-white working class. Social Darwinian theories encourage and enable to develop the development of ideologies concerning white middle-class women's emancipation, and emphasized white women's specific role as the conservators of race traits and the civilizers of racial and class inferiors. The Anglo-Saxon Protestant women's self-proclaimed burden at the turn of the century was to help her nation in rescuing these so-called primitive and working-class peoples from stagnation and decay, to protect them from the violent abuses of the U.S. government and primitive and working-class women from the supposed abuses of their men, and to assimilate evolutionary inferiors into a more advanced Christian civilization. White women who participated in domestic and foreign missionary societies, in the local, national, and world temperance movements, in the settlement house movement, in the international peace movement, in any of the organized white women's movements at the turn of the century, built their institutions on the premise that they, as Anglo-Saxon Protestant women, were the best conveyors of advanced civilization. Supporters of the women's settlement house movement could be quite candid about the relations this ideology produced between themselves and the objects of their civilizing efforts. Catherine Coleman, a professor at Wellesley College, observed, another quote, "A settlement is a colony planted in a strange land by immigrants from a superior civilization. Hull House has become a potent force in the civilizing of the great city wilderness where it was planted." So that's a great summary of what feminism was and the truth behind the origins of feminism. Okay, in the essays that I have and the videos that I have presented, we in the Mexica movement are talking about this. We are talking about denouncing Eurocentric ideologies and not using Eurocentric ideologies as the measure of justice and as the actual origins of what's going to liberate us. Something that was created for Europeans, whatever a concept and ideology, will only benefit them because it was created and intended to benefit them. No recognition, no inclusion, no respect about us, the Nicantlaca people. So let us not forget that feminism is maternal colonialism. It is the white woman trying to get her piece of the white supremacist pie on our continent. I will talk about more issues regarding what our women actually did, the type of roles that we held before 1492. We need to cleanse ourselves from that Eurocentric view that tells us that our ancestors were uncivilized and that women were treated like crap and that European women are the prime examples of womanhood. And this book is a great example, an honest conversation on the truth behind feminism, and it is called the female aspect of colonialism, maternal colonialism. That is what feminism is. Machismo is not Mexican. Machismo does not belong to our culture. We have to denounce every ideology and every concept that has infected us for the last 500 years. Think about it. I will talk more about this in future videos to come. But for now, that is a great introduction to start understanding the history behind feminism. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please message me any questions, any thoughts that you have. Share with me what you know about this, and I will be making more videos. Thank you very much. Tiklali from the Mexica movement.
Arizona is home to the Grand Canyon. Southern Arizona is famous for its deserts, while northern Arizona is famous for its tall, forest-like trees, once populated by a large indigenous Mexican population. Arizona has tribal reservations which include Apache, Navajo, and some others. Fish native to Arizona include the Apache trout, which just so happens to be Arizona's state fish. Today, the Apache trout is an endangered species. The most notorious place of cultural evils in Arizona can be found in Sanders. Sanders, Arizona is considered by most to be Arizona hell. This town, under 600 residents within the state of Arizona, the rule of law is more emphasized by county laws rather than city laws. Maricopa County is the most cosmopolitan section of the state of Arizona. Within Maricopa County, such cities as Phoenix, Glendale, and Peoria, are set on a grid. Union Hills on the north side, Van Buren on the south side, 59th Avenue on the west side, 23rd Street on the east side, a central between avenue and the street, a grid. The local bus is called Valley Metro. A quick route that goes through is the Valley Metro Light Rail. The two most popular street drugs today in Phoenix and Glendale are meth and heroin. There is an alliance between the Jewish Defense League, a right-wing Zionist terrorist group, and the National Socialist Movement, a Nazi terrorist group. Many members from both of these organizations occupy low and mid-rank level positions in the Phoenix Police Department and the Glendale Police Department. The state of Arizona is the number one place that identity theft occurs within the first world. Even though it is against federal law not to report a death in the obituary, several deaths never make it into the obituary. Human trafficking is common in Arizona. South Phoenix is a place where war between cops and drug dealers is rampant. Average teenage kids, be they black, Mexican, or even those considered white, are truly in harm's way in many situations. Midnight Productions is tied in with the NSM, the JDL, and the cops of both Phoenix and Glendale. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Department is said to be filled with members of Midnight Productions in South Phoenix. The drug dealers are not friend. The cops are not friend. In South Phoenix, the best way to get ahead is to sell drugs, a life with no future, but criminality and possible incarceration. One of the best hopes of Glendale, Arizona, was the Lenin-Mao Communist Union, a group of Marxist-Leninists and Marxist-Leninist Maoists. Their membership was black and Mexican. It's reported by many that they found ways to convince young teenagers to stay in school and better themselves. They held groups studying with youngsters. The works of Marx, Engels, Lenin, Stalin, Mao were made available to them. Also Lin Biao, Huey P. Newton, and The Shining Path was studied. And so was Soviet history, along with the in-depth study of Castro and Che. The Lenin-Mao Communist Union was one of the revolutionary groups, along with the Bundist movement, that had a mission to undo Midnight Productions. In Arizona, trans teenagers are targeted and often exploited into prostitution. Many of these teens go missing. Several of them are wonderful artists, but instead of expressing their creativity that so many of them have, they are sold, fetishized, and often they are used for snuff films to delight cops on a power trip. Porn is a powerful industry in Phoenix and Glendale, and it mostly flies under the radar. If you have only heard of this from the lumpen, then it may be time to listen to the lumpen. The working class in the first world is largely bribed. Any one of you in the first world working class could become lumpen. Many of you in the first world working class used to be lumpen. December 22nd, 2007 marks the end of the year of the event of the protests against the Pruitts in Phoenix, Arizona. The culmination of this historical event has sparked a nationally recognized controversy initiated by Arizona Sheriff Joe Apiro to alter Policy 1.4, enabling police to target anyone assumed to be an illegal immigrant of the USA without regard to citizens' rights. This issue is to change the economic situation of Arizona through a racial strategy committed by Anglo political leaders in office presently, and fully supported by the police, inherently a racist class. Media coverage has spread false information of the Pruitts' human rights supporters, activities to support the diversity of Arizona and America. This is only the beginning of the burning times ahead. There was a stupid video put out by that phony Glassno 444. This video is utter nonsense. I will play it and then give some context, as Glassno gives no context. Glassno would rather make stupid videos with images of Bernie Sanders using the voice of Prairie Fire, edited to say things that he didn't say, and is frankly pathetic. Anyway, here is the stupid video.
The story of Arizona's relationship with the museum is remarkable on many fronts. Starting with the fact the museum was even willing to work with a rural community in Arizona to help us get to the point we are today.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sheila Polk. I serve
Law
as the
enforcement officers and prosecutors, we take an oath of office to defend and protect our Constitution. How we do our job every single day really defines how healthy and vibrant our democracy is.
Well, what does the Holocaust have to do with me and my job as county attorney?
My day in March of 2006 at the museum was transformational for me. Just this burning feeling that this history is so relevant to our profession today, and this desire to bring this course for our police officers and our prosecutors. I want it for all of our criminal justice professionals. The success of our story really is the success of relationships and of partnerships. And we have a whole new generation of champions now in Arizona who are helping push this program to the next level.
When we were first developing the class, our police chiefs decided that they wanted everyone who takes this course to receive a challenge coin.
When I look at this coin, it says Guardians of Freedom, Lessons from the Holocaust. Well, I think the title says it all.
This video really means nothing. For one thing, the Arizona City of Prescott is in Yavapai County, not Maricopa County. Maricopa County includes the cities of Phoenix, the capital of Arizona, the place where it is a social war between bohemian and bigotry. Glendale, the turf of the poor versus the rich. Tempe, the city of the overrated. Mesa, the Mormon oligarchy city within Arizona. Scottsdale, the preppy bullshitter city. Peoria, mind your own shitland. Surprise, the ironic city of no surprises, they should change its name to Predictable. Buckeye, the city of who cares, and several others. None of these cities include Prescott. Secondly, that video is propaganda designed to make Jews feel safe. Glassnow claims that Dr. Weisfeld, Donna Newman, and Comrade Net are all the same person. This is a lie. Here is a recording of Dr. Weisfeld, which multiple exist on his own YouTube channel.
The eventual solution to the Zionist nation-state superstructure, is the program that was presented by the PLO at the time, which was calling for a democratic, secular Palestine. And since that time, in the course of geopolitical negotiations, of course, we have been presented with the Oslo principles of 1993. And it has become evident as well that this agreement, although signed by the Zionist administration of the state, has not been implemented. In fact, now we have seen the quasi-annexation of the entire Jordan River Valley and the prospect of the annexation of Sector C, which is 62% of the West Bank. So when the Zionist state has made concessions, it has been under duress.
Here is a recording of Donna Newman and Comrade Net interacting, broadcasting from the Bundist Movement headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona.
Sholem Aleichem. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom Aleichem. Okay. To start off with, let me start by saying that we need to dispel the new rumor that got started by some of the members of the AZ anarcho-punk bloc. I'm sorry. The AZ anarcho. Alright, sorry. Oh. Don't smile like that. Don't do that. Okay. The AZ anarcho-punk bloc. No, that's not right, no. I thought they were just called the Arizona Punks or something, but no. Really? Oh, man. Alright. Sorry, I'm sorry. Oh, alright. Don't smile. Alright. Miriam Emmitsberg and Hannah Toff are not tearing the Bundes movement apart. These rumors, started by some in the AZ anarcho-punk bloc, are based on something misunderstood. Miriam Emmitsberg and Hannah Toff tend to argue, not because they are not comrades, rather comrades do argue, and arguments happen in vanguard meetings, commonly. Maybe anarchists need to start looking more at themselves, instead of obsessively criticizing things not understood by those non-Jewish. Miriam and Hannah argue. So,
Oy vey. I hate getting in between Miriam and Hannah.
do you prefer that I get in between them? I mean, I typically get in between Marvin and Uri.
But they're best friends.
And roommates. But would you prefer that I get between Miriam and Hannah?
Oh my god, no! Isaiah is my hero in that regard.
Some context. When the anarcho-syndical family collapsed due to the consistent raiding of their squatter houses by the police, an opportunistic new group formed called the Arizona Anarcho-Punk Bloc. This group is no longer in operation. Now, I too think that the name is rather, whatever. Many Maoists and anarchists in Arizona consider the AZ Anarcho-Punk Bloc to have been a modern COINTELPRO. The Antifa cells in Arizona often disband quickly in order to avoid infiltration by the cops. Many anarchists have been very honest in stating that each year it becomes harder and harder to stabilize an Antifa gathering without pigs screwing the entire thing up. Sometimes the cops send the junkies in to destabilize the situation. The best of the anarchists like to work with the Maoists to form these Antifa marches. This type of Antifa prefers the European model of Antifa over the American model of Antifa. In regards to my New Year's message to the anarchists, within that message I made reference about racists, calling the lumpen racist. I will bring you the video I suggested. For anyone new to my channel, the man in the video giving a history lesson is my friend, Caleb Maupin.
In the spirit of Twitter putting out white people against racism, I am going to criticize another work of art. And this is a work of art that I love, by the way. Beautiful novel that was made into a movie. Beautiful stuff. And I enjoyed it. I loved it. I read the book. I saw the movie. We then read it a couple years later in school. To Kill a Mockingbird. Aesthetically, a great work. Just a great work of art. About the Old South, about Jim Crow and the injustice of it. But I am going to criticize it. That doesn't mean that I'm destroying your childhood, love for that book. It's a very beloved book. It's a young adult book, right? It's told from a child's perspective. It's a beautiful book, but politically it's problematic. Why? Folks, it takes place in the 1930s, right? Before the Second World War, during the Great Depression. The hero is a wealthy lawyer named Atticus Finch. And it's told from the perspective of his daughter, Scout. And he's a lawyer, and he defends an African-American man who is charged with rape falsely. And he's charged with raping a white woman. And despite the fact that the evidence overwhelmingly shows that this black man is not guilty of rape, he's convicted of it. And it's a tragedy. And it's a growing-up story. The girl is growing up in a world realizing that injustice exists. The Atticus Finch father character is portrayed as being, just a man with a heart of gold. The whites in the book are portrayed as a bunch of racist rednecks. And that is the essence of the problem. During the 1930s, the slogan of the Communist Party USA, which was the vanguard of the anti-racist organization, before anyone had ever heard of Martin Luther King, right? I mean, the Communist Party USA, that was the party that W.E.B. Du Bois was in, was friendly with. That was the party of Paul Robeson. That was the party of the Harlem Renaissance. That was the party that ran African Americans as vice presidential candidates. They were the revolutionary. You can read, there's a book, Hammer and Hoe, History of the Communist Party of Alabama. Everyone knew that the Communist Party was the vanguard anti-racist organization. And what was the slogan of the Communist Party during the 1930s on regards to race? They said, "Black and white unite and fight." And the Communist Party made more progress in fighting racism. And the way they did it was they said, and they told white workers, that racism hurts you by stigmatizing and oppressing African Americans, by forcing African Americans to go to separate schools that are lower quality, by not allowing African Americans to drink out of the same drinking fountains, by the lynch terror regime where any black man could be killed extra legally for any reason, right? Where they would just have these mobs of people who would just kill black men. That hurt white workers. That was the message the Communist Party had. They said, obviously, racism is the worst for the people of color, but for white workers, it's no good for them. And the way out is solidarity. It's black and white, unite and fight. And the Communist Party actually built labor unions that were interracial. That was illegal at the time, mind you. In South Carolina, in Alabama, in Tennessee, in places like that, the Communist Party built interracial unions of textile workers. You should read about the Gastonia textile strike of 1928. You should read about the 1934, sharecroppers strikes that happened. And the Communist Party, their message to the low-income white workers was that by joining in racism, you are helping the bosses. That was their message. And the Communist Party did amazing things in the South during the 1930s. In 1934, they declared a state of emergency in South Carolina. And the National Guard was sent in because so many workers, white and black, were joining arm in arm together, demanding better conditions, demanding an end to Jim Crow segregation. But the way To Kill a Mockingbird portrays the race question is that it's the rich white people that are the friends of black people, and it's the white working class that are the racists and the rednecks. And that the educated white people, like Atticus Finch, who are wealthy, need to control those out-of-control rednecks. That's basically the message. And it's extremely problematic, and it's not what happened during the 1930s at all. Read Hammer and Hoe. Read the history of the Communist Party. Read the memoirs of Angelo Herndon, one of the militant leaders of the Communist Party, an African-American man in Alabama. They tried to give him the death penalty just for handing out leaflets, right? They had a law in Alabama that it was illegal to incite black people to revolution. He was an African-American man. He was handing out leaflets saying, the workers had to have a revolution, and they almost gave him the death penalty. Angelo Herndon. He was freed by the Supreme Court, thank goodness. But the Communist Party in the South did amazing things. Amazing things. And they did it not by saying that the white workers are all in the Klan and we need these educated white rich people to come and, fight for the black people and protect them from them, those white trash rednecks. That wasn't the message at all. It was the rich white people that were the enemy. And the message was black and white unite and fight. And it was about solidarity. And that's how millions of white workers were won to quit, to rip up their Ku Klux Klan cards. You can read about this, right? That they would, that William Z. Foster or Gus Hall would come to a town. These were strong white workers, and they would give a speech, and white workers would just be in tears, and they would realize that racism was something that ripped them out, and they'd take their Ku Klux Klan membership card and they would rip it up. That was what fought racism in the 1930s, right? It was black and white unite and fight. And the white workers weren't the enemy. The white workers weren't the enemy. And it wasn't the ruling class as a white savior protecting the black people from those racist whites. That was not what happened at all. That was not what happened at all. And the message of that book, the message of To Kill a Mockingbird. To Kill a Mockingbird was published in 1961, I believe. And the message of To Kill a Mockingbird is not what really happened in the 1930s in the South. The message of To Kill a Mockingbird is about what happened in the 1950s. It's about the civil rights movement. That's what it's about. It's about the civil rights movement, which was largely some of the richest people in the United States realizing that Jim Crow segregation hurt the United States economically and was a really, really big problem in the face of the Soviet Union. In 1954, when Emmett Till was lynched, a young black man was killed for whistling at a white woman, allegedly. When that happened, the Soviet Union took the picture, the photo of his body, and sent it all over the world and said, oh, the USA says they believe in democracy and freedom. Well, take a look at this picture, right? And there were the Kennedy family and a lot of the northern wing of the Democratic Party, which was really, on some level, it was almost just a turf war, because the Dixiecrats had been their rivals in the party for a long time. The Dixiecrats, the solid South of the Democrats, they hated those folks. They couldn't stand them. The Kennedy family, these are Irish Catholics from the North. These are racist Southern white guys and Klansmen in the South in the Democratic Party. The Kennedy family couldn't stand them. So the fight against Jim Crow developed in the context of the Soviet Union using the race issue to humiliate and discredit the United States, number one. In the context of the Kennedy family and the northern wing of the Democratic Party being really, really tired and wanting to break the southern wing of the Democratic Party and strip them of their power because they were corrupt and they had too much power and they made the Democratic Party do awful things. For example, Harry Truman wanted to create national health insurance. Did you know that? Harry Truman wanted to create national health insurance. In the 50s, coming out of World War II, late 40s, Harry Truman was saying, let's get national health insurance. Let's give everyone national health insurance. And then they sat down with their own party, not the Republicans, but their own party. And the Southern guys were like, what? You mean we have to have the same... You're going to build two hospitals, right? We're going to have a black hospital and a white hospital. That's how we do things in Alabama. And Truman and the northern wing of the Democratic Party said, there is no way we are going to build two hospitals if we're having to pay for it out of the federal budget. And it was the Dixiecrats, the racist Jim Crow Democrats, that destroyed national health care. Racism is bad for all of us. It's most especially bad for people of color, but it's bad for all of us. The reason we don't have national health care right now is because of racism, right? The Jim Crow Democratic Party, when Truman and the Democratic Party were getting ready to pass national health care, national health insurance in the late 40s, the Jim Crow Democrats sat there and they said, the only way we're going to support this is if you build segregated hospital, and they weren't going to do that, right? And they were not going to have it, right? And that Jim Crow hurt the Democratic Party, and the Kennedy family knew that. They knew it. It was a big problem, And so the civil rights movement took place in the context of a section of the ruling class, a section of the most wealthy people in the United States, kicking the ass of the southern wing of the ruling class that wanted to keep segregation. And, that's what you see in To Kill a Mockingbird. Atticus Finch is a wealthy, educated man, and the people in his little southern town are a bunch of racist rednecks. And he's educated, and the way the black people are portrayed in the novel isn't particularly good either. You don't ever see them fighting for their own rights, during that time, it was very common for the black people to take up arms against the Ku Klux Klan and form militias and defend themselves, but you didn't see that. That's not in the book. But it's this kind of white savior. The wealthy white savior goes to get those rabble rednecks in line, and it doesn't work, and it's so sad. And the book, the book really plays into a white savior mentality, right? Atticus Finch is the wealthy, educated, good white person, right? And all the other whites, the white workers, are a bunch of uneducated white trash rabble, and then the black people are just victims, right? It's a problematic narrative. That wasn't the narrative of Martin Luther King. That wasn't the narrative, certainly, of Kwame Ture and Medgar Evers and a lot of the forces down there. But that was the narrative of white people who supported the civil rights movement. And To Kill a Mockingbird basically reflects the narrative of white people who supported the civil rights movement. And that's a problematic narrative. And it doesn't reflect what happened in the 1930s, which is the most untold story. The most untold story of our time. What the Communist Party USA did in the 1930s is utterly amazing. You need to read this history. The Communist Party, they are the ones that were beating the drum of anti-racism long before anybody else was, right? 1940, I have video, I show it on my YouTube channel. James W. Ford was the vice presidential nominee of the Communist Party. He was their vice presidential nominee in 1932. He was their vice presidential nominee in 1936. He was their vice presidential nominee in 1940. James W. Ford, an African-American man.
At the National Convention of the American Communist Party, held in New York City in June of 1940, James Ford, the Communist Party candidate for the Vice Presidency of the United States, said,
"For the Negro in the South, my people, the Negro people of America, have in the Communist Party their best defender, the unfailing champion of their cause. I accept its nomination for Vice President of the United States."
Let's also remember that up until 1956, the Communist Party didn't just say that African Americans were discriminated against. The Communist Party actually maintained that African Americans were a nation. They were an oppressed nation within U.S. borders, right? And they argued that there was a black nation within the United States, a colonized people, right? And that, I mean, you need to read this stuff, right? It wasn't until 1956 that the Communist Party officially dropped that position, that black people were a nation. And so there's just so much that is missing today. So much that is missing.
The history of American communist parties is a very sad story. Today, there is nothing communist or socialist about the American communist parties. Thinking about how bad the situation in America is in our time can cause massive depression to any active Marxist. Most Americans have no real grasp of their own history. Take the word redneck. Communists of the southern states within America wore red bandanas around their necks, which is why they were known as rednecks. The Oxford English Dictionary defines it as a derogatory term when used to define a poorly educated white person working as an agricultural laborer or from a rural area in the southern United States, typically considered as holding bigoted or reactionary attitudes much earlier than 1921, 1891, 1904, 1913. This is entirely dishonest. Redneck is communist. Today, many folk in Appalachia are reclaiming the term redneck. The misuse of the word redneck is a great example of how anti-white politics feeds whiteness rather than undoing whiteness. Racists calling the lumpen racist? Watch the TV show Cops. Blacks, Mexicans, and trailer trash are portrayed as dangerous, stupid, ignorant, and thuggish. This is called racism. Never forget that the Democratic Party in America has the most racist history as far as American political parties go. Racists calling the poor racist. What do you think the words white trash means? It means the people that Whitey expels from his colonialist family, whites thrown away by other whites. There is no white nation. There are many European nations, but there are several mixed Europeans. But there is no white nation. There is a Jewish nation, which is a diaspora nation. There is a black nation, which in its most revolutionary context seeks to build a new Africa. Inspired by the Bundist movement, the Lenin-Mao Communist Union adopted the dialectical white question. The Lenin-Mao Communist had members that were Syrian, mixed European, half Asian, half European, yet mostly black and Mexican. I've already stated the black nation was conceived of in the hellish slave ships. I have already explained that the black nation was born in black liberation struggle. I have already explained that the Jewish nation is based on Judaism, a cultural religious tradition that maintains contacts with other peoples, and how Zionism and its state of Israel is reactionary, essentially untrustworthy, and incapable of maintaining any contacts with any other peoples. Zionism is not Judaism, but there are of course those who say, but I have met Jews who say Zionism is the state of Israel, is a part of Judaism. By this logic, Ku Klux Klan is Christian. The Ku Klux Klan membership maintains that they are truly Christian. If Zionism is truly Jewish, then this logic applies to Christianity even more so. Indeed, it makes more sense for us to say that the Ku Klux Klan represents Christians than it is for us to say Zionism and the State of Israel represents Jews. And of course, the KKK does not speak Christians or Christianity. However, whiteness has defenses against the logic that we Europeans, stuck in the white lie, tend to blindly accept. Not only does Zionism and the State of Israel not represent Jews and Judaism, Christian Zionism predates Jewish Zionism. When Jewish Zionists indeed secular European support, they went to receive aid from the proto-evangelical Protestants that held to an ideology called Restorationism. The proto-evangelical Protestants now call themselves evangelicals, and born-again, blood-bought Christians are the true founders of Christian Zionism. The American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, or AIPAC, is an evangelical lobby, not a Jewish lobby. Now, some may ask, what in Judaism causes the Jews to reject the ideology of Zionism and the State of Israel? The answer is the Talmud, more precisely, the Babylonian Talmud. To attack the Talmud is to attack the Jewish nation itself. There are two Talmuds, the Jerusalem Talmud, which is not written in Jerusalem, it was written just outside Jerusalem, and the Babylonian Talmud, which answers a lot more questions about how to preserve Jews, the Jewish nation, as a diaspora nation. Online you can find just as many lies made against the Talmud as you can find against the Quran or the Hadith. If you want to understand what the Talmud is to the Jews, this can be compared to the Hadith for Muslims or the Catechism for Catholics. Neturei Karta is a group of ultra-Orthodox Jews that have their own origin as Palestinian Jews. The Bundist movement has not only built bridges with Marxism-Leninism, with Bundism, used to be at odds with the Bundist movement, has built bridges with the ultra-Orthodox Judaism, which it also used to be at odds with. The Bundist movement recognized Neturei Karta to be leaders of their generation. The Neturei Karta is known for burning Israeli flags, combating Islamophobia, mocking Zionists, standing with the PLO and Hamas, as well as giving support to both Iran and Hezbollah.
Meet Rabbi Hirsch.
I am the Minister for Jewish Affairs.
But not in Israel. He's the Minister of Jewish Affairs in Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat's cabinet. He's the Palestinians' rabbi.
The State of Israel will never have the right to exist. The Jewish nation will exist in the Holy Land when God redeems the Jewish people through his Messiah.
Rabbi Hirsch thinks Yasser Arafat should rule the Holy Land, not the Jews.
The English were here, they left. The Turks were here and they left. And we were left stateless. So when Mr. Arafat says, I am setting up a kosher state and a kosher sovereignty, what could be better?
Strange words in the context of the Arab-Israeli conflict, which has pitted Palestinians against Zionists for decades. Rabbi Hirsch is always there when Arafat greets world leaders in the West Bank and Gaza.
Well, in our eyes, a state of Israel does not exist, and it will cease to exist. Whether the Messianic era will appear in our lifetime or not, we are in the hands of God.
This is a picture of Dr. Weisfeld with the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. The Palestinian Marxist-Leninists considered Dr. Weisfeld their comrade. He is very beloved by Nablus, the Palestinian city of the West Bank. Dr. Weisfeld is even considered to be Palestinian by several Palestinians. And why not? There are Muslim Palestinians and Christian Palestinians, so it makes sense that a Canadian Jewish academic such as Dr. Weisfeld would be recognized by Palestinians as a Palestinian Jew. Zionists have shot at him, shooting a so-called rubber bullet at him. Those rubber bullets are not rubber, they are metal balls, with a plastic coating wrapped around them. Another time a Zionist fired a gas grenade at him, and last year he was tortured by Zionists with his Palestinian comrades. I covered the incident last year, you can look it up on YouTube. The video is called The Torture of Abraham Weisfeld. The Bundist movement is fighting fascism and colonialism, and if you are a Marxist-Leninist or especially a Maoist, you have to consider the Bundists to be your comrades or admit that you are not genuine. Here is a video from 2018. In this video, Dr. Weisfeld is denouncing the Zionists. The Palestinians are with him. You can see that he mentions that the Palestinians are indigenous Israelites.
انتوا بتقتلوا اطفالنا، انتوا محتلين، وهذا البلد بلدنا، هذا البلد بلدنا مش بلدكم. لازم ترحلوا من هنا. انتم مجرمين، انتم قتلة، انتم بتحموا المستوطنين اللي هنا. هذه صار يجب ان ترحل، والاحتلال يجب ان يرحل. احكوا لنتنياهو هذه الارض فلسطينية، شو بتساووا انتم هنا؟ شو بتسوي؟ هذه ارض فلسطينية مش الكم. هذا البلد بلدنا، والصهيوني شردنا.
خلص زيكنا من هنا، رسالتنا اقوى، رسالتنا اقوى منهم.
محتلين مجرمين، محتلين مجرمين، سرقوا ارضك يا فلسطين، سرقوا ارضك يا فلسطين.
Weißt du nicht, die bist nicht Kajiden, die bist Zionim. You are not Jewish, you are Zionist. Do you understand? You don't understand anything because you have never been to a real school. You have only been to indoctrination. You only have been to a Zionist school. You have never been to a Jewish school. You've never been to a Cheder. You've never been to a Talmud Torah. Die weiß gut nicht. Was weiß die von alles? Gut nicht. Ich bin für den jüdischen Bund. Meine Brüder von meiner Mitte ist gewähne Partisane. Keine die Faschisten. Und was machst die? Die macht faschistische Sachen. Dann ist Arbeit, ist eine faschistische Arbeit. Eine kleine Kippa. Sehr klein, sehr klein. Very small kippa. Because you are very small Jewish. That's why. You are not Jewish. You are Zionist. I know. I am from the Jewish Bund. My mother's brother was a partisan who fought against fascism, Nazism. You don't know what it is to be a partisan because you are making fascism. You are working for the illegal settlement of Yitzhar.
وهم هدول بزرعوا الموت. هدول المجرمين، هدول الارهابيين. احنا جايين نقول هذا البلد بلدنا، والصهيوني شردنا. هذا الجندي المجرم الحقير بدم الفلسطينيين.
You see, the Palestinians understand what it is to be Jewish. You don't know what it is to be Jewish. Yes.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. It is our land. It does not belong to you.
Yes. Did you ever go to fight for a Jewish land in Europe? No, nothing. Nothing. You do nothing for the Jewish people. Here you come and take the land of others who were one time Israelites. And you talk about the 10 lost tribes. Here, you can find them right here. You don't know anything. Go to university and not to the military.
Fascism is capitalism in decay. Many fascists claim to oppose capitalism, which is a lie. On classical fascism, there is corporatism and national socialism. Corporatism is an ultra-state nationalist chauvinism. This is the ideology of the Italian fascists of World War II, but it was also the ideology of Oswald Mosley. National Socialism is better known as Nazism. Nazism is racist supremacist theory centered around a mythological belief in blood and soil race theory. Statehood and private property is the basis for Nazism. Privatization is a policy that began under Nazism, contrary to the claim that Strasserists make. Neo-Nazis are not any less Nazi than the classical Hitlerite Nazis. Neo-Nazis tend to act just like the brown shirts. Let's talk about the internment camps. Interned persons may be held in prisons or facilities known as internment camps, also known as concentration camps. This involves internment generally, as distinct from the subject. The Nazi extermination camps, commonly referred to as death camps. In the state of Arizona, there is an outcry by many Trump supporters to bring about death camps, as if the basic internment concentration camps were not bad enough. In order to save the future, we must teach our fellow comrades self-reliance, and not rest all of our hopes on social democracy. We need to calculate and be vigilant in our struggles against colonialism and fascism. We can only do this with correct ideas, as written by Mao. Where do correct ideas come from? Do they drop from the skies? No. Are they innate in the mind? No. They come from social practice and from it alone. They come from three kinds of social practice: the struggle for production, the class struggle, and scientific experiment. It is man's social being that determines his thinking. Once the correct ideas characteristic of the advanced class are grasped by the masses, these ideas turn into a material force which changes society and changes the world. In their social practice, men engage in various kinds of struggle and gain rich experience, both from their successes and from their failures. Countless phenomena of the objective external world are reflected in man's brain through his five sense organs, the organs of sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. At first, knowledge is perceptual. The leap to conceptual knowledge, i.e. to ideas, occurs when sufficient perpetual knowledge is accumulated. We can't act like things are just going to be okay. Voting for Sanders just because he is more or less anti-fascist does not change the fact that he is an imperialist. Even with the principles Sanders has, they are not going to let him win. I leave you with the conclusion of this video, which came out on March 20th, 2010.
I love my people, the Nicantlaca, the indigenous people of this continent, the full blood and the mixed blood, all of them from the north to the south, from Alaska to Tierra del Fuego. I love who we are as civilizations and cultures, a people of genius, passion, creativity. I love all of who we are, who we were, the whole of our past. The past where we were once a people of civilizations going back to 3700 BC. Our first civilization was born in the southern part of this continent, in the Caral Supe area of Peru. Our civilizations were older, centuries older than the civilization of Egypt. We were the first people who approached our Creator in a scientific way, a way that was all about loving our Creator and not of fearing our Creator. We were also a people who invented original approaches to astronomy, mathematics, writing, calendar making, engineering, architecture, art, education, medicine, agriculture, literature, government, and so much more. All of these great accomplishments are unknown by our people in any real way. Today, our people are enslaved to ignorance. We are deeply enslaved to ignorance, and we don't know it. We, every one of us, are culturally, economically, psychologically, and emotionally the slaves of the white race. We have no vision that is real of the beautiful accomplishments of our people. And we have no vision of the liberated potential of our future, a future without white people controlling our lives. We don't think of it, we don't visualize it, we can't see a future where white people will no longer be stealing the wealth of our continent and where all of our lands will be ours collectively, all as one nation from Alaska to Tierra del Fuego, all of Semanahuac as one nation. The very idea of having no Europeans in our lives, not controlling our lives, scares us. Scares us more than the KKK, more than death, more than cancer, more than violent death. We are good and scared, cowardly scared, because that is how we have been conditioned to fear the white man. This has to change. This lecture is a guidance for that change. This lecture is for those with the intelligence and the courage to change their lives and to help the rest of our people become a people educated in our interests as a liberated Nicantlaca people. In order for us to be liberated, we need to be educated as Nicantlaca, as the indigenous people that we are. In order for us to be educated, we have to learn how to study. But somewhere along the way, we have to learn courage and honor, discipline and dedication, and to have a true love for the idea of an independent Nicantlaka nation free from Europeans. We have been doing the work of the Mexica movement since 1992 to confront white supremacy and to provide an education for the liberation of our people. We noticed back then that there was not one organization that was speaking and acting for our people as a Nicantlaka people. We created the Mexica movement for that purpose. Over the years, we have been viciously and verbally attacked, not by the KKK or white supremacists. We have been attacked by the vendidos and the opportunists in our community. We get a lot of 15-year-old vendidos challenging what we do and how we do it. They tell us what to write and what not to write. But we also get ignorant or sloppily educated people in their 30s, 40s, 50s who also feel more qualified than the Mexica movement to define our identity, to define our history, and to say what the future of our people will be or will not be. We have the New Agers and the fundamentalist Christians telling us what our ancestors' theology was all about. And none of them has ever even accomplished 1% of the research work that we have done in the study of our heritage. For the record, this is who we are. This is what we have done. We have built an organization for the educational liberation of our people as Nicantlaka, as a united indigenous people all across this continent. We're all about action and not just talk or intellectualizing or an organization of one member on the internet. We have organized protests against the white supremacy of the Anglos and the white supremacy of Spanish language media. We have organized protests against vendidos like Eddie Olmos and Salma Hayek. We have stopped the production of 2 major racist films, one on Zapata, starring the Spaniard Antonio Banderas, and the other was a Ron Howard film that was going to glorify Cortez. Both were stopped because of the protests of the Mexica movement. We have organized lectures and campaigns to help our people speak more intelligently about their identity and their heritage. We have built one of the largest libraries that focuses on our Nicantlaka heritage. We have done outreach in our communities, at colleges, at events, at protests, and in neighborhoods all across this continent. We have done one of the largest murals on our heritage anywhere on this planet, in East Los Angeles. We have built a website to promote this knowledge, to recruit membership, and to give our people some hope. We have created a YouTube website to disseminate knowledge in the form of video lectures from the sacred archaeological sites of our people and lectures in our community, lectures like today. We have guided our people to understand the importance of our Nahuatl language by providing a series of videos introducing them to the Nahuatl language. And we have provided guidance and collective leadership against colonialism and white supremacy, providing a future for our people, a vision of our people, free. We have done all of this, and we challenge anyone to say that they have done even 10% of this. But still, we have people confronting us, stealing our materials and passing them off as theirs, and going on about black Israelites and Kennewick men and black Olmecs and Atlantis and energy and harmony and so much more ignorance. So yeah, doing education and liberation work is difficult when our people resist liberation. But why do our people resist? Because Telemundo is telling them that they're Latinos and they're Hispanics. They're being promoted as happy mestizos. They're being promoted as the future white people of America. They're being promoted as anything other than the indigenous people of this land, as the owners of this land. And why? Why? Why is that happening? Because that's in the interest of the white settlers on this continent in order for them to continue maintaining, taking the wealth of this continent. Every day we're being robbed and we don't care. But somebody steals your bicycle or your car or your iPod and you're ready to kill. Yeah. So something has gone really terribly wrong. In order to straighten this all out, we have to educate ourselves. It's not going to probably happen in this generation and maybe not even the next generation, but we got to start somewhere.